Okay. Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Center for Pluralism. It is all about building a cohesive society, cohesive America, where each one of us feels secure about who we are. And right now, as you are witnessing conflicts, we have arranged this particular seminar or conversation on Zoom. And with two of us are going to talk about it. Okay, we will take the advocation. And we are going to share about. Assalamu alaikum, Khaja. Welcome. Okay, he's got it. We welcome this and to talk about the topic we have today, that is peace building in a world of conflicts. We have Soraya Deen. She is an award-winning international activist and a community organizer. She is a lawyer and founder of the Muslim Women Speakers Movement. She is the co-founder of Peace Moms, promoting Christian Muslim dialogue, and the Interfaith Solidarity Network, one of the largest interfaith organizations in Los Angeles. Soraya is the author of Peace Matters, Raising Peace Consciousness Among Children. Soraya also organized the first Interfaith Women's Leadership Conference at the Los Angeles City Hall in October 2016. Soraya, welcome, and please share your perspective how we can build peace in the world full of
Uh,
conflicts.
Assalamu alaikum, Mike. Thank you so much. That's a tall order. Peace is not just the absence of violence. It is not just the manifestation of justice. So it is larger and more complex than we know. Now, you say pluralism is respecting the otherness of the other and
Indeed.
accepting the uniqueness of each other. Now, this is not easy, Mike. This is one of the most contentious parts, right? That
Indeed.
it will be confrontational. So my specific goal today is to talk about the language. How can we speak in a kind way? Because I firmly believe that one of the most uh, under under focused issues in peacemaking is the language. The language is critical because that is the one that connects us. So
Words
how
matter.
words matter, and we have to learn to take a step back, and we have all of life to communicate, but we are in this haste. If someone says something, we want to say something back. And I'm not for a moment saying I am perfect, I have arrived. But here's what I assert: I am very mindful. If I have made a judgment, if I have said something that is not wonderful, nice about the other person, it sends me two antennas come up, and I know I need to rephrase. Now, having said that, I'm not saying we need to be nice and be kind and ignore and overlook what impacts us. But what we're here today is to learn how to say this in a nicer, kinder way that benefits both of us. For instance, Mike, I mean, this is a very simple example. Let's say there were three slices of pizza and it was meant for you and me. You come and you eat all three. Which I hope not. But I can say, oh my God, this Mike Ghouse, he's greedy. He's thoughtless. He always finishes the pizza. Or I can say, Mike has eaten the last three slices of pizza. So we arrive at a whole new place when we learn to make observations. And this is critical. I mean, both of us have our origins in South Asia. You know, Jiddu Krishnamurti, one of the most respected philosophers of our time, said
He
the
is one of my
highest,
mentors too.
oh, he is, okay, fantastic. The highest form of intelligence is to observe without judging. Now, this is impossible. This is really difficult because from day one, we are told what is right, what is wrong, how to judge. how to put people in boxes. So, actually, in non-violent communication, what we need to do is we need to unlearn the way we are talking, to unlearn. So, how can we speak peace in a world of conflict is our topic today. And there are some nuggets that I want to share with you that will be extremely helpful for us to talk in a very, very kind way to the other person. Especially, we say when you are entering into a contentious conversation, we ourselves have to do despair work before we enter into that conversation, because so many thoughts, so much anger, so much things come in us. So we have to do the despair work before we enter into the conversation, especially people like us who are social activists. We have to, if we have made a mistake, we have to repair that rupture. If we are not, we have to go forward with an awareness. So let's talk about the 4Ds, Mike. The 4Ds. In that flyer, I talk about the 4Ds. The 4Ds of dysfunctional communication. Number one is denying responsibility. Something that I don't know whether you can relate to this. I have in the past, but now I'm very mindful. I mean, to say, I didn't mean to do it. I had to do it because of somebody else. Or I said this because of something else. That's not going to cut it. We have to take full responsibility for what is coming out of our mouth. So we can't anymore deny responsibility for what we are creating. Then the second one is we make demands. Demands is when I tell somebody I need something done the way I want it done, and will not give the other person an opportunity to explain why he can't do it. It's a demand. Oftentimes, as parents, we are very guilty of this. We make demands of our children and we ask them, do it right then the way we want it. And then they learn this. That is why you see the society is so broken, because we are all making demands of each other. So our ability to make a request is very important. Sometimes our words are hidden in a request. I might say, Mike, can you please do it? But inside, deep within me, I want you to do it. And if you don't do it, I hold resentment towards you. And that resentment flows, in our future interactions, in our work together. So my willingness to accept why you can't do it now, why it doesn't work for you, is critical. So that's the second D.
Let me
Refrain
add,
from making
Soraya,
demands.
let
Yes.
me add to that. Uh, Let it be a conversation between you and I.
Yes.
When people make demands on others to change without realizing that the others can also make an equal demand on me. And I had to realize that I don't have more privileges than the other person. If I accept that I'm equal to the other person, then my demand should be less. What I have found throughout the entire life, between husband and wife, between different couples, nations, we are constantly wanting others to change for us
Mm,
without accepting them for who they are. And we, between spouses, for example, they leave the entire world with conflicts because I want her to wear this kind of clothes. I want him to wear this. In this conflict, we spend, instead of simply accepting for who we are, when we accept who we are, these making demands will go away. When you don't demand, resentment will not be there. And then there is peace and absence of conflict, as you mentioned earlier. Please go
mm.
ahead.
Yes, that is so true. And that leads us to the next point, is that we are not doctors, but we are very good at diagnosing people. So and so is this, so and so is that. I mean, we have to let go of this diagnosis of people, because we are then um, making a judgment of something or somebody based on our understanding. And everything we think and everything we talk about is not necessarily the truth. There's always two sides to it, right? I
Yes.
know a woman called Byron Katie, who does the thing, who does a series of workshops called The Work. She always says, when a thought comes to you, ask yourself 4 questions. Is this true? Then again she says, ask yourself, am I absolutely sure it is true? And then she says, go forward and ask, what would I be without this thought? How can this enhance our relationship? So these are deep work, deep rooted work, which is not easy, because as I said earlier, Mike, we're trying to unlearn. So unless we develop a spiritual practice, which is very, very, very critical to build social transformation, we can't sit where we are and expect for change to happen. We have to have self transformation first. That means observing the observer. Watch yourself, actually be a witness of your own self. That is very critical. And that is a lifetime of work. Uh,
Let me share, add to what you already said, few things. Let go of judgment. You
yeah.
mentioned that's item number three. 4 weeks ago, I had a presentation with the Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring, similar seminar. In there, one of our Imam friends, Imam Faisal Khan, was also on the discussion. He asked me, how do we find solution between the Shia-Sunni conflict and the conflict within the Muslim community? And instantly, the word in the Quran, Maliki Yawmiddin, that is, every Muslim who prays 5 times a day recites this word, Maliki Yawmiddin, at least 51 times a day. It means God is the only one who can judge you. What is in your heart, only God knows, not anybody else. And only He can judge and not others. If people, whether Quran is not necessarily for Muslims, Quran is for humanity. Although the Muslims claim it is theirs, but it is for humanity. So when God says, don't judge people, let me, because you don't know what is in somebody's heart, what what is happening there is avoid judging other people. Yes, if you steal something from me, as a society, we have a responsibility to punish you. But what is in your heart, whom you pray, how you pray, what beliefs you hold, that is between you and God, not anybody else's business. So Imam, I'm glad Imam Faisal Khan asked that question, and he was very satisfied with the answer. Um, I think there was another thing I wanted to talk about it, changing. Yeah, I think we talked about changing other. I just wanted to beef up what you are talking. Go to the next item now.
Yeah, so then based on what you just said, that was beautiful. It moved me when you said, oh, God is the only judge. I think what we lack in our community is a sense of collective consciousness. Enough people thinking like that. So that is like, you can be such a light, Mike, and I known you for a long time now, and you walk the talk. So I'm really honored and privileged to be on this show talking about this. Maybe we are both preaching to each other,
Well, it's a
but I
good
have a lot to
conversation.
learn from them. Yeah, from you. Yes.
I think I just discovered now. I think instead of a monologue, this kind of conversation is good because it keeps the interest up for
Yes,
everyone.
definitely, definitely, yes. And then
So
the
you
fourth
mentioned
D,
4 items, four
yes,
D's. That is, not deny responsibility, do not make demands, and let go of judgment.
and diagnose. D is the
Diagnose.
diagnose, yes.
Diagnose.
And the fourth one, we say this in this acronym form because it's easy for people to remember, is this deserve tag we put on others. Or the Shias deserve it, or the Sunnis deserve it. So that is very alienating. If I tell you, Mike, you have not done this, so therefore you deserve it. Um, we should avoid that kind of language. So those are the 4 Ds that really we have to watch. Uh, and let us be really clear, Mike. This is a story I want to tell. We have a thing called choice, right? We can choose today to be that person that we are. If we need to be aware. So some of us, we are nice dead people. We don't even understand who do I want to be? Who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? So when we know that, we have to really clearly know that we have a choice. Now, this is a story that I tell when I speak to youth. The Dr. King was once at a meeting, and it was a crowded room. He was seated and he was just about to get ready to speak. Somebody came rushing up to Dr. King and said, are you Dr. King? He said, yes, I am. He takes a mouthful of spit and spits it at Dr. King. Dr. King gracefully reaches into his pocket, takes out a handkerchief, he wipes the spit, and he says, here, this belongs to you. So that is the kind of person we need to become, you know?
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, yes. So these are stories and situations that we share, not because we have nothing better to do, but to inspire people to take that higher ground that is critically important in today's conflict-ridden world, right?
To add, to add to what you're saying, go ahead and finish. I'll add to a few items
Yeah.
too.
So to be really mindful, that is taking choice very, very seriously. In order to do that, you want to know, who am I showing up as? Okay. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
I think you mentioned about choice. I think in the Declaration of Independence, we talk about these truths. These are the truths we accept. And what happened was in the Quran, share the story. You have to be imaginative about the story,
Mm,
Soraya. I think Christians, Jews, and Muslims can relate with this. I'm sure others can see the interpretation of that.
mm,
When God gives a choice to Adam, look, Adam, if you eat this fruit,
mm,
you don't belong here anymore. We'll kick you out of this piece of place,
mm,
peaceful place. But if you don't eat, you get to stay here. Adam, being Adam, he chose to eat whatever that was, wheat or fruit, apple, whatever he chose to eat. And then within few minutes, he realizes that his stomach was grumbling. He hears a noise from inside. He was worried, what is this noise coming from inside? Satan was standing nearby, and he said, Adam, you ate that fruit, and it is processing, digesting inside your system. That is the noise. In a few minutes, you have to go excrete some of that stuff out, unprocessed stuff. He said, where do I go? Then God steps in. Adam, I told you not to eat. Why did you eat? He says, God, I didn't know. I thought, since you mentioned it, I thought I should eat it. And I tried, and no, there is some problem here. He says, Adam, we don't have a bathroom in the paradise. It's a clean place. If you don't have a bathroom, you can't go to bathroom now, and we are going to kick you out from here. And the angels argued with God. God, this is wrong. You could have slapped Adam and told him, Adam, don't eat it. He wouldn't have. And poor guy didn't have to go to some place where he had to work every day, fight to live, fight with the animals, fight with the Los Angeles traffic where you are from. And
mm,
God says, look, guys, look, angels, I am the God. I gave a choice to Adam. If you eat, these are the consequences. I don't eat, this will happen. He chose. I gave him the free will. He chose it. I am the God. If I don't honor my own words, who will? From now on, let's upload in all his progeny, the DNA of all his progeny, free will. Free will is a God given right to every human, and everyone has a choice to make whatever they want to make. And that's why I think our not constitution, the Declaration of Independence talks about the inalienable right. Freedom, free will, free speech is an inalienable right. And that's what the Quran says. You'll be amazed how much our constitution reflects the values practiced in the Quran. So I
Hmm.
thought I would add that to add, make your point stronger. And I'm glad you mentioned, and we don't deserve to tag.
Hmm. And I'm so glad you're bringing this up. That means we are having this beautiful book with us. And I think we have to then understand this differently to
Yes, we
see.
do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most of us have failed in that.
In
Uh,
fact, in this book, Soraya, there is
mm,
a chapter called Free Will. What I have done differently, I'm going to share my parts now. Now,
yeah.
you got more things to say. You can finish that. Then I will talk about the book.
Oh, okay. Um, okay. So we talked about if we want if peace in a world of conflict, first is self transformation. Do not speak about peace if you are not a peacemaker. That is a double standard. And that is why the world is in this kind of disarray, right? I
Indeed.
think that Dr. King also said it can't be a peace can't be a distant goal we seek. It must be the means by which we arrive at the goal.
Yes.
That means everything we say, everything we do must translate into this long-term goal of peacemaking. So we can't, especially the United States, we are very guilty. We talk about peace, but we produce arms. So these are some issues that we have to seriously deal with. How serious are we about when we talk about peace? So if there's no self transformation, we have to really take serious cognizance of this fact and do take some powerful concrete steps. I don't know, Mike, what do you do to really be spiritual and centered on a daily basis? What are your spiritual practices that you are like this to see different?
I always think of what the astronomer who said, we are merely a speck in the earth. If you realize we are merely a speck in this universe, all of a sudden humility comes to us. The arrogance in us that I am the greatest, that the world cannot exist without me. We should realize that the world has been there for maybe thousands or millions of years, is going on. My existence may be important to me, but not to others. Many have come and gone. But those who have created peace, common goodness for all of us, have continued, like Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna. All these guys have given a message to humanity. Krishna is not for Hindus, Muhammad is not for Muslims. Their role was to create peace in the universe. Their role was, in fact, the whole religion was created to create societies where no person lives in fear of the other. That's what God wants again. And that's what was preached by all these religious men. And their message was common. There is a common thread in it. And the spirituality to me is not wearing some colorful orange clothes or white clothes and wearing headgear and showing that you are different than others. Spirituality is to prove that you are with everyone else and you are merely a speck in this universe. Humility is what spirituality is about. Humility builds bridges. Humility connects with you, with people. It removes the conflicts. Arrogance increases the conflicts. The arrogance between family members, husband and wife, between children, that I am the right, I'm saying the right thing, you should listen to me, you should change to me, without giving value to the other person. It happens among nations. As America, sometimes we are very arrogant people. And I hate to say this, we want other countries to change for us. We
Yeah.
want Iran to do certain things, we want others to do something. Why, if we have it, why can't others have it? If you accept that, I think a lot of the conflicts go. We enhance the conflicts. You alluded to the defense manufacturing. As peacemakers, we need to find a way. I was on the board of directors of Dallas Peace Center, and one of the things that we did was, I don't know where that report is the benefits of peace. We spent billions of dollars. Yes, there is profit for these people who support the defense industry. They're rich, enriched by that, and that's fine. But if it involves killing others, if our equipment bombs fell on Gaza, fell every place. We kill people. We should take the responsibility. Instead, if America, we want more consumers around the world, we want to find wealth by selling our products, start educating people in the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and Asia the idea of democracy. We got such a beautiful democracy. Democracy is not something you impose. You
Mm,
start teaching in schools, and it should be a one or two generations program, not results in the next year. If you inculcate the values of democracy in children going from a grade school, respecting the otherness of the others, and the four items you mentioned about peace building, if children learn this, what do you expect them to, if they became the leaders of the nation, what do? They build peace.
mm,
And when there is peace, there is a lot of prosperity. And that's where America can sell its education system, our democracy. We have to sell that to other people, or we have to donate to other people so they can be on par with us as consumers for our products. There is a lot of good things we can produce instead of the war machines.
yes, absolutely. So the chronology would be self-transformation, then building connections with others, and then we transform structures and that have created like government, our judicial, make it more restorative, and there are so many steps that we can take. So we can't ignore the first to come to the third, and that's why we are getting so stuck. Uh,
Yes,
yes, that's why we are getting so stuck. So I think it's critical, as you said, to wake up in the morning and realize, oh my God, I'm just a speck. You know, let me do my best and be humble, and then move on. Without pretending that you have the answers to everything and you are it. So then
on
I
that,
also,
can you give me one more second
of course.
on the word spec and spirituality? One of the best statements I have found, it was amazing. I was in the Unity Church in Dallas, and I went to the bathroom. On the wall was pasted this quote, which has become a part of my teaching pluralism. It was said by Chief Seattle. Chief Seattle was the chief about 150 some years ago. He said this so beautifully: all things are connected. Everything in the nature is connected. We eat the food, and we consume different things, and we have become part of the others' consumption. The entire world is created with the same amount of mass. The mass is not changing. Forms are changing,
Mm,
but the mass remains constant. That's why the Earth can go in circles without moving off. It's very well balanced. So he says, all things are connected. Whatever befalls on the earth befalls the sons of the earth, meaning the inhabitants of the earth. Whatever happens to the earth happens to all. Coronavirus, it is not looking rich or poor, president or somebody on the street working on a daily job. Chinese, American, Arabs, Italians, it doesn't, whatever befalls on the earth, it falls on every one of us. Then he says, the man did not weave this web of life. We didn't create this web. We
mm,
are merely a strand in it.
mm,
Whatever we do to that strand, it affects all of us.
mm.
Whatever damage, whether it is a war or whatever we do, we think it is others are hurting. Eventually, we also hurt.
Right.
And I thought this was a very powerful statement, and that is included in the Center for Pluralism teaching.
Yes, very powerful. This is what we have to, and whatever happens to one affects us all, right?
Yes, indeed.
My father would always say, when you put somebody down, you have to be in a very precarious place to hold that person down. It
Indeed.
impacts you, yes. So
Indeed.
look down and always lift somebody up. It has been some of the things values I learned also growing up. And to think, I don't know whether I was I was raised in a South Asian culture, um, and it's totally different from what is here in the United States. We look for different remedies, and bringing the family as a cohesive unit. Um, and it happens here too. I have seen stronger marriages in the United States than back home. But to have those grounding values, I think you don't have to be a conservative or a liberal. Conservatives think we are the ones with these values. The liberals also have these values. So
Indeed,
how can
indeed,
we talk beyond the political divisive discourse is very important. And as you say, to listen to the other person.
indeed, indeed.
Yeah. Mm.
You mentioned cohesive families a few seconds ago. Let me share my vision of what cohesiveness is, and I would urge you, why don't you share what cohesiveness means to you? Then I will share mine.
Oh, cohesive, what I meant was not a deep diagnosis of a deep understanding or a picture. It's just to say families that stay together, pray together, and make time for each other, communicate. Those were some of the values I thought would create a cohesive family. And you?
Well, I see it this way. I look at the entire universe. Let's look at just our solar system. There is a sun, and there are about 9 major planets, and of course, the stars and all of them there. But if you look at this, how well created this universe, the sun is stationary, the
Mm,
heat, and around that we are traversing, going in circumambulation, whatever that word is. Each one has got its own gravity pull. It's going very precisely in a calculated way. If the Earth, Pluto, Mars, if they go half a degree off, there will be collisions, there will be creation problems. The Earth is also designed to tilt a few degrees to change the weather patterns in the Earth, and that is what is allowing us human life to survive here. If it is constantly rotating in the same weather, same cold, same heat, we will not be able to survive. We need vitamin D. We also need other things. So that is how this entire nature is created. They're all functioning together cohesively. Now, from the universe, let's come to our own human body. We got brain, you got heart, chest, kidneys. All of them have to work together for me and you to act as a normal person. If my brain doesn't work, I'm going nuts and crazy, and it's I don't fit in this society. There is no peace, as you mentioned. There is no peace there because one of the parts of my body is not working. But if my heart is not working fine, the other parts of the bodies are meaningless.
mm,
They all heart, kidney, each one has got a definitive function: pumping the blood, cleaning the blood, and passing the warning us from the fears, saving ourselves. If there is a pain, how do we manage it? This is all put together such effectively the human body, and maintaining that cohesiveness. And then there is another thing: the kind of foods we eat allows our body to react to that. We cannot have it is since I'm going through kidney dialysis, I'm learning so much. When I go to the clinic, they give me the what they call minerals. Potassium has got to be at certain level. Calcium has got to be at certain level. In a normal human being, all these things function same amount, and that's how the body functions well. If one salt increases, sugar increases, then you get diabetes, water retention. It is really a very well balanced mechanism in the body. And all
wow.
these organs have to work cohesively for me to function normally. So this is what cohesiveness means. In the society, when we talk about society, as let's say American society, we have divisiveness. Uh, and as you mentioned earlier, make what was the second one? Make demands or let go of the judgment. Those good values apply here in a society. If you
Mm,
think I don't like to use the word redneck, but I will use it to make a point. I hate that word. You're demeaning somebody else with these words.
mm. You
Have you
diagnosed him and then you're demeaning.
How do you expect that person to sit down with you, work with you, go to work, or ride the train with you, or go in the metro system? How do you expect when you're demeaning, denigrating that person? And that is not how you build cohesive societies. Cohesive societies, no matter what you believe, you may drink Budweiser beer, I may not drink any alcohol, but still we can go to a bar, sit down and have a conversation. You drink what you want, I drink water, and together we can work together. But if you insist that I should have that, or I insist you don't drink the beer, then there is no cohesiveness. What is
Yes.
the purpose of that? There is no need for you or me to change for each other. We have to learn to accept who we are. When we do that, most of the conflicts will go away, Soraya.
Right, right. So
And
on that note, Mike,
that's what
are you,
cohesiveness means to me.
yeah,
Sorry.
okay, fabulous. Yes. So what you're saying is, let me really clarify this. What your understanding of cohesiveness is, there should be synchronicity on everything, and everybody should work together for a result. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. For the
Okay.
common goal. In the office, if your goal is to build a rocket to go into the moon, and each one is arguing, say, no, my product is better, and arguing, you will never go there. You will never achieve that. We all have to come together, drop our interest. Two engineers, hey, my idea is better, your idea is better. One has to learn that what is good for the common goal, that is, make a rocket and go to the moon. If
Mm,
that, if you focus on the goal, our own ideas become secondary. The idea
yes.
of the goal becomes primary,
Yeah.
and we all come together cohesively, functioning to achieve that goal, whether it is an office work or going in a train or whatever you do in a family. In the kitchen, if there are two or three people cooking, what is that? Say, too many cooks spoil the food.
Soup.
Something,
Spoil the soup.
yeah. So if you don't cohesively prepare the foods, it will spoil. We have
Mm,
to work together, and that's what cohesion means to me.
right.
And to achieve the ultimate peace that you've been talking about, and that's what is needed. So you want to repeat, summarize the four items and briefly?
Yes, and also I want to say, now we have made it doubly clear, harder. We are looking for this cohesiveness in a WhatsApp conversation or a tweet or a Facebook post, and we are never going to find it. Don't you think so?
Well, all we can do is try. I,
Yes.
once again, I take this example. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. My intention is good. Jesus, God wanted the entire universe to be diverse. He didn't create all men 6 feet tall, all women 5.5 feet tall. He created us to be unique with our own thumbprint, eye print, DNA. We are all very unique. We
Mm,
have to learn to accept that uniqueness. Once you accept that, then you are not my enemy. Nobody should be our enemy. So, uh, talking about America, what Biden can do is, first thing to do is call on the people who voted for Trump, and he has done part of it. Call on the people and said, "I am here." He's already stated, but he needs to go deeper into that. I'm here to find jobs for you, find, restore the prosperity that you had before. I want you to enjoy the life that you had before, and my goal is to work for that. Come work with me. He needs to reach out, even if they reject initially. He needs to continue to persist
right.
with them. Once he has got them, then there is no more that American and this American. We are all one America. As he clearly said, which Obama had mentioned, there is no
Mm,
red America, there is no blue America. It's all United States of America. And I think that is a great message Biden has given. And I think we all need to focus on one nation under God, regardless. Nobody is anybody enemy. No one is my enemy. I have written an article several years ago. People have misunderstood me, or others have misunderstood me. When we sit down and have a sincere dialogue, as you have suggested, then all of a sudden we don't find any difference. Our goals are identical. What is that we want? So
right.
every one of us want a good job, taking care of our children, their education, having a nice home, eat good food, and retire in security without
Mm.
worries, without, so what will happen to my grandchildren? What will happen to them? What will happen if these guys, conservatives or liberals, take over? What happens?
Mm.
All these fears are legitimate, and we address that fear by subscribing to our constitution, which is a guarantor of our way of life. Nobody should lose their way of life. And that's what
Yes.
the constitution does.
Yes, and then also our society today, if one was to listen, build solidarity, offer empathy, it's looked upon as a weakness because
Indeed.
we are in a dominant
Are you there, Soraya?
from our discussion today, Mike.
What
One is
happened?
one is anger.
Yes.
Oh, anger. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay.
There
Anger.
was a pause for a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Anger is a beautiful thing. Anger tells us something deep. It tells us what we want, what we need. If we pay attention, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So anger is a tragic expression of an unmet need. Let's say you are driving and somebody cuts in front of you. You get angry. What is your need? Your need is some kind of order, a respect for your space, right? But what do you call this person? Oh, jerk. This guy doesn't know how to drive. So how can we really translate our anger into what we need is very critical. So I am just touching the surface of this kind of uh, change, because there is what is called a needs list. We have to work with that, understand what our needs are. So the in finishing, or in on the road to finishing, let us work with some judgments and observations, Mike, because if there's one thing I want everybody to take away, it is to understand the difference between a judgment and an observation. For instance, if I say your paper is messy, or if I say there are holes and smudges on your paper, which is a judgment, which is an observation? What do you think? Your paper is messy. Your paper has holes and smudges. There are holes and smudges on your paper.
Well, judgment is something that reflects on you.
Yeah.
You
Now,
said
of the two
defensive
sentences,
posture.
yes, of the two sentences, can you point out?
We missed the whole conversation. The last three, four sentences, we didn't hear.
You, Mike.
I can hear you now.
Uh, so which is a judgment? Your paper is messy, or there are holes and smudges on your paper?
I think they're observations, they're not judgments.
Yes, I think clearly your paper is messy is a judgment, right? You're judging this outcome. Whereas if you say your paper has holes and smudges, that's an observation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's true. The word messy reflects on the individual.
Yes, exactly.
And
So
the other one, which will make him or her defensive.
yes,
Your goal is not to make them defensive, but to see the point and bring correction.
yes, yes,
And when you
yes.
said holes in it, you're just observing. I agree with you. Agree with that.
Exactly, exactly. Because otherwise, you're indirectly you're saying I'm messy. I didn't cause the mess. Maybe my dog ate the paper when I just turned around. We don't know. So let's work with let's work with another one. Uh, they are acting silly is one sentence. The other one is they're rolling around on the floor. They're acting silly is certainly a judgment.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're rolling around on the floor is an observation.
Of what's happening there.
Yes, exactly. So this is what we are arriving at. If there's one thing I want everybody to take from today's conversation is please discern between a judgment and an observation and learn to make those observations. For instance, he's a tattletale. You're telling somebody he carries tails. Then you can also say he told the teacher that I called him a name. That's a pure observation.
It is.
Yes, it's not a tattletale. So the minute you know that I'm calling you a tattletale, it's hard for us to come together to be creative and to have a meaningful relationship. But when I learned to say, he told the teacher that I called him a name, it's very neutral ground. So our ability to be able to do that, it's very, very slow work, and it takes years. So another one, she is noisy. That's one way of saying it. Then she asked me questions about what I did today. She's nosy is one. Second one is she asked me questions about what I did today.
Very clear judgment. Very clear
Yeah,
judgment.
the nosy is judgmental,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So they are mean. That is one sentence. The other one is they said I couldn't have a turn. So when we learn to make observations, that's what Krishnamurti said, highest form of intelligence is to observe without judging. So when we teach this, we say to people, look at the whole thing that's evolving through the lens of a camera. How will you narrate it? Oh, there they have I mean, you narrate it in a different way. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. You're just telling
Yeah.
the facts.
Yes, yes. So this is very critical when we come together and work, because I know we are on some WhatsApp groups together, and I'm not saying that I may not have made a judgment, I may have, but there are so many judgments that are thrown up and down, right? Hey, you don't know, you are this, you're that, versus, if we can hear you said this, and then of course I'm not even touching on this, then you express your feelings and needs and make a specific request. That is the whole thread of nonviolent communication, to make
It
that
is.
request. The request is critical, Mike. Now for instance, I might tell you, Mike, can you help me with this thing? And I wait for you to help. I have not made a specific request. What is the help I'm seeking from you? Can you meet me at 2 o'clock to draft this letter? You can deliver, right? Oftentimes our relationships crumble because we make these blanket statements and expect the other to understand. So these are all processes that we go through in speaking peace in a world of conflict. So because there's not much time, I just really think we should all understand the power of making an observation and not a judgment. uh,
I want to share one small story. One
uh-huh.
of the shows that I watch, fifth time I'm watching, is The Golden Girls. I don't know if you watch that show.
Yes, yes, I do.
What is beautiful about that show is four women living in the same household. They're telling bad things to each other, but that is that moment. The next moment, they're friendly.
Yeah.
They're living together in harmony despite what they say. I don't like this. So in one of the scenes that I have recorded, which I use it for teaching purposes, Sophia, the older lady, and she had a problem with her sister. So her sister visits her from Italy, and she stays in Sophia, that is the older lady's home. She stays there for 2 weeks, but the two sisters don't talk with each other at all. They
Mm,
hated each other. They stayed in separate corners. They ate dinner at separate time. It was the Sophia's daughter, B. Arthur. She is the one trying to bring them together. She fails. So one day, uh, Sophia says, I don't want to talk to that woman, which is her sister. She kissed my husband 20 years ago.
mm.
So her sister listens, what are you telling? Why would I do that? I never kissed your husband. She said, that's what they told me. I said, why didn't you ask me about it? And all of a sudden they realized, the sisters realized they were holding grudges against each other based on a hearsay, based on a judgment, rather than talking among themselves and finding that what is the truth. So one of the things that I counsel in the couples marrying interfaith marriages is I say I would talk to the bride, and when he or either one comes home excited about certain things and they want to say a few things. And again, I narrate the story of Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad meets an Archangel Jibril When he comes home, he was all sweaty, scared. That experience was very difficult. He comes to Khadija, his wife, and tells her what happened. In a traditional family, in most of our families, yeah, you're just making it up. It is how you're hallucinated. You put down the other person. When you put down all lesson, there is a barrier between you. What
Yes.
did Khatija did? She believed what? She didn't see any reason for him to lie to her. She believed him and his experience, and that kept their bonding together. It is so critical to listen to each other. And also, if you say something to me, I should not misunderstand you. And in a relationship, I have to, Soraya, you said these words. I heard you these words. Is this what you meant? This is what I understood. Is that what you meant? I said, no, that's not what I meant. Then I had to clarify and honestly believe what you said, not what I assumed you said. Once we have that kind of communication, which is communication of peace, we will not have that conflict that I mentioned about Sophia Petrillo had with her sister.
Mm. True, true, so true. So all it takes is a clarification. Even in that clarification, Mike, it's a language. I don't come barging at you and say, hey, you said this, you are not a good person, or something like that. Rather, to make an observation of that conversation that had happened. So
Yes,
this judgment thing goes, it's like the silken thread. Of course, it's not silk, it's some kind of a cheap yarn that goes through every conversation. So put your brakes on, be mindful, and there is that spot where you come to speak, and there's that gap where you can decide what to speak. It's so narrow and it's so thin. That is where mindfulness begins. Should I say
indeed,
this?
indeed.
Yeah. Or should I pause at this gap and look at this? Is this the right thing to say?
Sure.
The Rotary, I know you are a Rotarian. They ask four
Oh, I
questions.
didn't belong. I have attended and spoken, but not a Rotarian yet.
Oh, okay. So in everything, they say ask four questions. Is this the truth? Will it build better friendships? Will it promote goodwill? And the fourth is, will it benefit all? you know and then when we apply the brakes and reformulate our words, and one of the famous quotes of prophet, I mean, you are so much more knowledgeable on this. He says kindness is a mark of faith. If you're not kind, you don't have faith. So
Exactly.
yeah, so kindness in words is critical for a peace in a world full of conflict.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I may share a few things, and then you may want to summarize, and we can conclude in the next 5 to 6 minutes.
Okay.
I just want to share a few things about this book. It's got two new things. You talked to, when I had a meeting with the evangelical pastors about 4 years ago, they came up with a survey where 63% of evangelical pastors uh, believe that Islam is not a religion, it is a cult. Whereas their congregants believed, about 40% of their congregants believe that Islam is a religion because that's what they see. So Bob Roberts is one of the main evangelicals in the United States and his team. So I asked them, why don't we sit down and have a conversation? So we had a conversation. In that conversation, what came about was, I'm trying to relate with the book. He said, when we invite imams to come and speak at a synagogue or a church, they come and do this blah, 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 some words in Arabic which we don't understand.
Wow.
And then how do we, and all they talk about is the rituals of Islam. And that we really don't understand what Islam is. And that is the reason we have these differences. So that is the time I designed a course called what is it Islam, what Islam does to make the world a better place. So in that, I wrote this book. One of the chapters is a brand new chapter I would say, in the history of Islam. Nobody has written this chapter ever before. You talk to Muslims, all they talk about is the five pillars of Islam. So what we did was create 12 values of Islam. These values contribute towards the well-being of the entire universe. These values are the Quranic values, and each value, like justice, being truthful, being secure for others, these values contribute to creating a better world. And that is, and remember, God is not Muslims' God or Christians' God. God is God of all of us, or the creator of all of us. His process, whether it is evolution or creation, somebody created that process, and we are part of that process. And those 12 values in this book contribute to the goodness of the entire universe. So that's I wanted to share. It's a brand new chapter, never written before, and each item, the 12 items, is supported by at least 6 to 7 verses from the Quran. And I have very rarely I have used hadiths, because there are many manufactured hadiths. Hadiths, some of the hadiths shamefully don't portray Prophet as a peacemaker, as a man of peace. They're triumphalists who promoted whatever they want, but did not match what Prophet was all about. So I have not used any. The few I have used, but generally it is all Quran. And that's all we needed. That's all I wanted to share about the book. And we have to build a cohesive America. We got several workshops lined up, Soraya. It is at the centerforpluralism.com, and there is a tab called workshops. If you click the tab, there are several ones, and we are doing one in about a week's time, how to build a cohesive India. What does it take for Indians to work together? So you may want to consider inviting a Buddhist who completely opposes your belief, a monk or anybody Buddhist, and you and me, we can do one on, I will be the moderator because I don't know much about Sri Lanka. But I know some, but I know you, but I know some, but not much. So we need, I will be the moderator, you and another gentleman can work on creating, how do we build a cohesive Sri Lanka where a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Hindu can live in harmony by accepting each other, communicating with each other, bringing the peace, which is the topic, today's topic that you
Wonderful.
initiated.
One. Mike, can you show the book, or is it on your website?
It is. Can you see it?
Title again? American Muslim
American
Agenda.
Muslim Agenda.
Okay.
I use the word agenda particularly because I was on Fox News for 7 years, and the conservatives, the book is mainly written for all people, for Muslims and non-Muslims, but particularly for those conservatives who hold a ill will towards Muslims. If you write the word agenda, it pricks their attention, and they want to see what are Muslims trying to do, take over America. It is about building a cohesive America. It's
Wow.
the formula can be used by any community, how they can contribute towards it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you for sharing. I hope, why haven't the mosques and organization bought this book and made it a compulsory reading for us?
It's actually, in fact, if somebody wants to teach Islam, it could be a curriculum for that. What
Wow.
Islam is. I mean, the rituals are there. They can add the rituals to it. I have not mentioned anything about the rituals in this. Talked about the values that contribute to the common goodness, and that's what Islam is about. I don't know. The people are so stuck in their learning. I would charge even the imams that come out of Al Azhar University, the seat of education. I have met many imams from Al Azhar, and I admire them for their learning, but it is all rote learning. Whatever one said 100,000 years ago, same thing is being repeated and learned.
Mm,
Nobody is questioning the validity of that. For example, there are many hadiths that don't portray Prophet as peacemaker.
absolutely.
And then they quote the same hadith, which is meaningless. We need to question. Until we question everything, it will not happen.
Yes.
And also there is a full chapter on criticism of Allah, Muhammad, Islam, and the Quran. I honestly welcome criticism from on these Islam, Muhammad. I welcome it from anybody because if somebody has got in their mind, they're looking for an answer. What I do is go find the answer in the Quran, and when they share it with them, they say, "Okay, it makes sense."
Mm.
And
And
when
Mike, yes, I love what you are talking about because not many people talk about critical thinking. When it
yes,
comes to religion, they think authority is truth. Now, I work with an organization. We deconstruct, help people deconstruct received theology. Especially, I teach women. Again, Mike, I'm sorry to say this. Maybe women have to rise to make this change also.
well,
Otherwise, it might not happen.
you are an example. You are a good
Yeah,
example of it.
yeah. So what we do is very simple. People are hanging on to archaic values because it was taught to them in a hadith. It is not even compatible with their life. It is not compatible with the culture they are living in. It is not compatible with the truth. But they are saying so and so said it, therefore it should be. Now, I have been in deep conversations with Christian reverends and pastors. I have been in conversation, believe me, Mike, with pastors who tell it is hard to teach that you can go to heaven only through if you accept Jesus. Because what was God's plan for the Muslim and the Hindu and the Jew? What was his plan? Yeah. So people have to wake up and think. And I think my friend Afri, she's a professor who teaches critical thinking. They encourage critical thinking. That
Because,
yes. So if your theology doesn't rest well, doesn't support human rights, humanity, there's something wrong that we need to talk about this. So
well,
so
we have somebody to look up to. You quoted, I forgot his name initially. I'm very fond of his writing. Did a lot of videos. Now we have a real human being out there who is talking the God's wisdom. Pope Francis.
mm,
He is my guru. I respect his teachings. In the beginning, he accepted women in leadership roles, and he's gone in a sequence one by one. He is making Catholic religion a universal religion. And
mm,
the latest one that he did 2 weeks ago, he told atheists, "You go to heaven too."
I saw that.
And it
Beautiful.
is such a powerful, and that's what Quran says too. And Muslims may not accept it. God says there is an example Muslims quote. There was a woman, uh, evil woman, whatever they want to call it. She sees an animal, a dog or a cat, thirsty. She goes someplace, finds water, and brings and uh, quenches the thirst of that animal. And Prophet Muhammad says, God has forgiven for that act of goodness. God has forgiven her. What it means is you can be an atheist. I'm talking about what Quran would say. You can be an atheist, and if you do good to fellow beings, you don't know what God has for you. God is the one who to give grace. Muslims don't send people, Muslims, Christians, or Jews or Hindus don't send people to heaven. They don't have the tickets to send them to any place. It is God who does that.
Mm,
And we should stay away from judging other people's faith.
right. Right. You have such an extensive knowledge on connecting theology to all the things that you teach. Now, I'm from Sri Lanka. I travel to Sri Lanka 4 times a year, work deeply in the remote communities and even in the urban communities. I am currently working with 25 women, Muslim women predominantly, who have been impacted by some Sharia, where the Qazi courts. Are you familiar with the word Qazi?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. The Qazi courts where family law, Muslim family law does not favor what is practiced, does not favor women, Mike. I'm not afraid to say this. I'm get very unpopular when they say it because as an activist, I'm talking about the lived realities. I'm not
yes.
talking about text. So I think just as much I will come halfway to listen to the text. I think people should also come and meet the activists halfway because we are bringing a powerful message. We are like the image. It's like you go to the supermarket. The person who bags your grocery is more important than the CEO who sits and makes rules.
Exactly,
Because
exactly.
yes, the next time you go to the supermarket determines on the service the person who bags the grocery gave you. So likewise, we are in the thick on the field taking these questions. And these are my Muslim sisters who are impacted. The husbands do talak, and before even the marriage is dissolved, they go and marry again. These are untold hardships these women are having, you know.
By
So
the
if we,
way, that
mm,
that nonsensical, I'm using the word nonsensical
yes,
boldly, practices only in India, uh, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. It is not even in Pakistan. There is a process for divorce. Imagine somebody married to a guy for 15 years with two small children. She's constantly living in the fear when he will say three times that useless word. And that God does not want his
mm,
creation to believe in fear. That's why he created different religions. Through religions, communicated that create societies where nobody has to live in fear. So that triple talaq is deadly element of Islam. It is not Islamic to begin with. Somebody injected in the middle, and that needs to go.
mm. And Sri Lanka, we go a step further. The Jamaitul Ulama has said women can't be qazis. So I know this is nonsensical. I can't agree with you more. You and I know this, Mike. But why can't we educate our imams who have some knowledge of the text but not the context? Why can't we have a strong program? This can be corrected, because I am looking at what is the vision and the image Islam has for the 22nd century, you know.
Look at the statement God has made in the Holy Quran, and Prophet has reiterated, your paradise is under the feet of your mother.
Mm,
Woman is given such a high priority. He says three times. So if a woman is knowledgeable, she will lead you to the paradise if she is the imam. She has every right to be an imam. And I think we, it's changing, Soraya.
yes,
For 1400 years, nobody questioned the interpretations of the imams, the bigger imams, smaller imams. Nobody questioned that. In the last 15 years, 20 years, I have keeping history, track of history. We are questioning Sharia, we are questioning everything about Islam. And that is what it is going to do is bring out the Islam that Prophet taught, a
yes,
Islam of justice, kindness, mercifulness, and cohesiveness. That is the Islam Prophet taught. That is coming back, and that's happening in America. And we should welcome any criticism of Islam, and I do.
right. You know, feedback is the breakfast of the lions, you know. We should be able, and it's been, I
Is
mean,
that
I
a
look
Sri Lankan
forward,
saying?
sorry.
Is that a Sri Lankan saying?
No, that's what I think one of the marketing gurus said. You know, every
I didn't know
morning, if
that.
you're
I
the
didn't know.
CEO, if you're the CEO of your company, wake up and be ready for the feedback. You know,
Yeah,
that is, yes, we should not shun it, and that is again where language is important. You know,
it
not
is.
the language of judgment, but we will. So I want to, before we finish, I want to test you one more time, Mike, with the judgment and the observation. So I read a long book. You are judging the book. How would you phrase it in an observation?
I read a book that gave me a lot of knowledge. It included a lot of things and learning more about it.
And how many pages?
Pages
If that,
really don't matter to me because the important thing is the message that I'm learning from it and implementing for my own use.
okay, good, good. You're there. But you know, when you say I read a long book, even that is a judgment. How can you rephrase it? I read a book with 175 pages. That's an observation.
I
So
agree.
this is
I
so
agree.
this
When you said long book, you're discouraging the other person to read it.
okay. Okay. So this kind of unlearning, this kind of clear observations, you know, some people think it's Is how can we do it? Is it necessary? Absolutely yes. Get super better at it so that you will perform above and beyond when the challenges arise. Because we all have to do this work called despair work.
Sure.
Before we go into this. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I
Well,
am
it's such a good
grateful.
conversation. I enjoyed thoroughly. I hope we can share this with
Yes.
fellow humans. And we will post this at the Center for Pluralism. There is a YouTube uh, called Center for Pluralism. YouTube, what do you call that? Page. So you can go to that. Give me
Channel.
about channel. Give
Uh-huh.
me a few days to put that together and then send it to you, and you can share with your friends.
Sure. Thank you so much.
And don't forget to do the work on building a cohesive Sri Lanka.
Yes. Okay. Let's have another conversation. Yes. And I also will do a shout out for others to buy your book, and I promise to buy the book also because
Thank
I
you. I
think
like it.
it'll be such a commentary and facts and what how much we can learn and enrich ourselves as we represent ourselves as Muslims. Thank you.
Indeed. Indeed.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for whoever has joined us. We appreciate you. Take care. Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you. Bye bye. Walaikum salam.